Hello, and welcome again to Reinvent and Rediscover, the podcast for those in the in between. I'm your host, Ava Laurie, and this is episode 44. We're going to talk about kind of a lot today, and I'm continuing on being a little more structured with my episodes. So, of course, I made an outline, and a lot of this is talking about faltering confidence and how to combat insecurity in different areas of your life. Kind of clocking that insecurity, leveling up, if you will. And something I was thinking about the other day while I was at the gym was that a majority of any insecurities that you may have can be solved by working harder. Okay? And that's not just physical. That's not just being insecure about your body or the way that your hair looks or whatever the case may be. This isn't always just physical. These can be mental insecurities or just the way that you present yourself that you feel insecure about. And I want to kind of dive into that because I just have a lot of thoughts about it. And I truly feel like anything that you can control that you dislike, you should control. You should try a little bit harder in whatever area that may be, to kind of combat whatever insecurity and overcome it. And I truly think I've talked about this before about like building that mental toughness and stacking the evidence that you do what you say you will and that you show up for yourself every single time. And I think that's because a lot of my confidence comes from the fact that I can rely on myself and I always do what I say I will. So if you cannot rely on yourself, it's likely that other people cannot rely on you either. And people have a hard time trusting you, which can lead to other areas of insecurity. So, a big way I proved this to myself was conquering a huge feat of my marathon. And the reason I talk about running a marathon so often is because it's one of the biggest points in my life where I had to overcome myself, and it was very pivotal in the way that I viewed myself and confidence outside of just physicality, but mental toughness and being able to conquer my own mind day in and day out. I was training my resilience like a muscle. Every day that I woke up over the winter, I did not want to run when it was 0 degrees out, or if I woke up and it was snowing, I did not want to run. I ran half marathons in the middle of the night, 20 degrees, cold, dark, alone. And I did that because I said I would run a marathon, and I knew that I had to show up for myself every single day. With every run, I had to give it my full effort. And that taught me a lot about my mind and that I'm so much more capable than sometimes I give myself credit for. I always told myself, like, I'm not a runner. I'll never be a runner. And these are the reasons why. I always had reasons why I couldn't be a runner. And the biggest one was my breathing disorders, like having asthma and vocal cord dysfunction. Were those were both diagnoses that I was given when I tried to run cross country in school, and I always felt like that was my biggest setback. And I struggled through cross country practices. I hated it. I faked it most of the time or walked most of the time, and my coach definitely knew that. He did not really care about me, and I mean, he cared about me on like a personal level, but as an athlete, I know he did not confide in me as an athlete at all, because I wasn't putting in the effort, and it was very clear that I did not rely on myself or confide in myself. I didn't have that belief in myself that I was capable to be as much of an athlete as the rest of the team. And I allowed that to kind of be attached to my identity for a while. When you start attaching those insecurities to your identity, it becomes like a core belief and a limiting belief as to who you are. And the best way to do that is to challenge it and overcome it in some way. And the way that I did that was training for a marathon with asthma and vocal cord dysfunction. And it came with a lot of other struggles throughout my training block that I overcame. Issues with eating, issues with body image, injury, just overall mental health things that came along. And every single time I was able to get through it. And something I always told myself, it came from my dad actually, was that the only way out is through. There's no other option. Like, when you're in the midst of something and it sucks, just get through it. And I have a whole podcast episode dedicated to that topic as well. But it really, really rang true when it came to running and increasing my mileage. And when it was raining or snowing or really hot outside, really freaking cold outside, or just miserable conditions in general. I ran in different countries. I ran fatigued, jet lagged, high elevations. I ran on trails. I ran everywhere, every chance that I got. And sometimes I feel like I ran my health into the ground just a bit by not listening to myself. But at the end of the day, I proved something to myself that you could never take from me. And I think that's why I've become a much more confident person since running my marathon as well, is because it's like I put myself through that willingly, but it was one of the biggest challenges I have ever signed myself up for. And like I said, it was my decision. I think a lot of challenges in our life are things that were brought upon us and something we don't necessarily choose. But when you choose a challenge that's very difficult and you have no like external reason to do it, it was, like I said, your decision to do it. It allows you to show up in other ways of your life for yourself and for other people in a better and stronger way. Because then you just constantly tell yourself, like, I can get through this, like, I can get through anything. And yeah, I just think there's no greater confidence than knowing I achieved the things I set my mind to. That's what I wrote on here. And I think that if you are feeling just a lack of confidence in your life in general, and you constantly feel like you're letting yourself down, because I hear that from people a lot, is, oh, I let myself down. I'm so ashamed of myself. I feel so guilty. I'm so irritated that I did that. Why did I do that? And ruminating. Sometimes I'm just yapping on this and I don't even know what I'm saying. But a lot of people just focus on their decisions and allow it to make them feel less than. And if you feel that way, sign yourself up for a marathon. No, but seriously, pick a very hard challenge that you get to choose to work towards and prove it to yourself that you are more than capable. But it starts with the belief that you are capable. And sometimes the action comes before the belief, but sometimes the belief gotta start. But sometimes you just have to be delusional enough to commit to something, and you'll build up the confidence as you go. Like with my marathon, I kind of was very delusional at first, but when I actually pulled the trigger and signed up for it, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I got myself into. I was feeling really unsure of my decision, but I knew that my actions would breed results, and they would breed the results that I wanted as long as I showed up with the most effort that I could every single run. So there's a couple different ways that insecurities can manifest. And I'm going to give you an example. If there is something that I feel deficient in my knowledge or understanding of, then I'm going to take the time to research and understand whatever topic it may be. It's embarrassing to feel like you do not understand the topic of conversation around the people that you are hanging around, or maybe your coworkers, or just in general. Like if you are in situations where you're not able to participate in a conversation because you are ignorant in the conversation, you should take that as a learning opportunity. I do that a lot when it comes to politics. I'm not someone who really reads up on political affairs often, which I guess is controversial, especially in this day and age. There's a lot of political debate going on. There's a lot of policies being passed that are concerning and very controversial. So it's been taking up a lot of topics of discussion amongst me, friends, family, social media debates. So clock that. Clock your lack of knowledge for things that you come across and take the time to learn more about it so that you can participate in the conversation. Some conversations I get like it's not your place to speak on, but if you feel inhibited by your knowledge in whatever area, then you need to use that as a growing and learning experience so that you can be a part of the conversation like everyone else and not feel like an idiot. Because that feeling of being an idiot, I know it. I know that feeling. And it's not a good one to feel like you're not on the same page as everyone else. I always felt that way in college as well because I did not like to participate in group discussions because I never knew what was going on. You know why I never really knew what was going on? Was because I was not doing the work outside of class. A lot of other students were doing the work plus extra because they loved it so much or they cared enough about it. And to be honest, like, I never, I don't want to say never cared in college because I was a decent student, but the second half of my college career, particularly, I remember sitting in classes where my biggest fear was being called on because I genuinely did not know what was going on or what these people were talking about because I clocked out. But it really also, not being able to raise my hands, a problem with this thing I've been using to record my podcast, I can't figure out, like, when I need to get my thoughts together and I pause, I think it keeps recording. But anyways, a big reason I never wanted to raise my hand in class was because I was insecure and scared I was going to say the wrong thing. You know why I was scared to say the wrong thing? Was because I was not convicted in my, like, thoughts or my opinions on anything because I was not knowledgeable. And when you're not knowledgeable and you're just speaking random things, you're probably going to say something wrong because you just don't know it. So looking back, if I could give myself some advice, would be to take all of that insecurity in class and put in the work so that I would come to class confident and ready to be called on, ready to raise my hand, ready to participate in discussion. And I typically always passed it off as just being shy and reserved and anxious. And while all of those things were true, and it's kind of an uncontrollable, if you will, I can't control kind of like the fact that I'm more introverted and shy, or anxious, but I can make it a whole lot better for myself if I am confident in the topic and know that I can speak about it when I get called on. And I just wish I wasn't so passive in my learning and in my education, but that's why I think that college right after high school is not for everyone, because you can kind of like go through life or you can go through your education for the longest time and just kind of get by and not have to put in the work and not actually have to research and study up on everything. So I think I still kind of had that mentality throughout college, and it was hard to break. Even though the first 2 years I was a major tryhard, but then after that, when I transferred out of that school, I didn't really care anymore. That's honestly a whole other topic. But if you feel deficient in any given topic, subject, that you feel like is prohibiting your ability to participate in a conversation, then clock that and do better. If you feel like you're underqualified or that you underperform against your peers, you'll feel a lot more confident if you work harder, because then at worst, you can still say for yourself, like, I'm doing the best that I can, or I'm offering all I have to offer, like, I'm putting in the work. Like, nobody can knock you for trying as hard as you have the ability to try. Nobody can be that mad at you for not knowing something that you spent your own time researching and trying to know. But if you're being passive and you just dilly-dally about life, then people are going to get irritated that you're at work underperforming when you have the ability to try harder and you're just simply not. But if you are putting your best effort forward, then you can still say that for yourself, even if you're still underperforming. But if you notice a trend that you're not doing as well as the people you're working with, and you feel like maybe you're underqualified for the job that you have, then study your peers. You know, think about what they are doing that makes them more qualified or perform better at whatever role it may be. And I have not worked a corporate job, but I'm just thinking about this because I watched this YouTube video of this guy. I can't even remember what, maybe it was a TikTok. He was talking about how he became a top performer at his company within 4 months of being hired. And when he was hired, he felt underqualified and he was performing poorly in comparison to most of his peers. So what he did for pretty much 4 months straight was listen. He listened to how his coworkers were calling people, the things that they were saying during cold calls, how they were acting in meetings. He took the time to kind of soak in as much knowledge as possible by being observant and diligent in his efforts to learn more. And that allowed him to kind of soak it all up like a sponge and be kind of a conglomeration of all the people around him, because you can level up to your environments if you so choose to actually take in your environment and allow it to change you. So that just kind of stuck out to me because there's always bound to be a moment in time, especially when you're first hired, where you feel less than everyone else and you just want to make an impression, you want to stand out. But it's hard getting into a company and, maybe it's an entry level role or one that you kind of barely skated by to get on or to get. And the best thing you can do is learn from people who know more about whatever topic than you. There's infinite knowledge to know, and everybody has something that they can teach you. And that kind of, I guess, goes both ways. But there's honestly something to learn or take from anyone that you come into a conversation with, especially in the role of work. Unique perspectives coming from their background, experiences, how they handle certain situations at work may be beneficial for you to hear about. You can, cherry pick what works for you. But clock that insecurity and don't cry about it, but change it, work on it, try harder. And you'll feel a lot more qualified to be leading discussions, leading meetings, or just performing better at work, I suppose. If you feel uncomfortable with the way you look in general, you can try harder with your appearance. And like I said, there's some things you can control, some things you can't. But it's much harder to have a bad day or feel insecure if you wake up and put on an outfit you're confident in, put on shoes you love, if you do your hair or makeup. If you're more confident that you put effort into something, the key thing here is the effort. And in whatever area it may be, the more effort you put into anything, the more confident you will be in that sector. Also, clocking your jealousy. Anytime that you feel insecure, or if you feel like someone has more than you and that makes you insecure, make every effort to get up to their level, because if they have it, you can have it too. And if you ever feel a twinge of jealousy or insecurity around someone, clock that, because it probably means that they have something that you aspire to have, and maybe you don't even realize it on a conscious level, but obviously your subconscious felt it. You know what I mean? So I wrote down 3 steps to kind of solving your insecurity. And even though I kind of brought you through some different real life examples, I'm going to give you 3 steps. So 1, like I was just talking about, is clocking jealousy. Observing when your body language shrinks, when you start speaking quieter. Those are ways to tell that you are insecure. I notice, like, when I'm feeling insecure out in public, I try to, like, not be seen. I'm trying to be hidden in some way. And when you want to hide, you either, like, curl your shoulders inward, you take smaller steps, you speak quieter and with less precision and less tonality in your voice. You're just likely to make yourself smaller. And like I said, sometimes you don't realize those insecurities on a conscious level, but the subconscious is speaking for itself. That's why when you meet someone, I can usually tell if somebody is feeling insecure, and I've said that before, based on their body language and how they're interacting with you and how they're acting as themselves in general in the public. So that's step 1, is just clocking it, being able to tell and observing, reflecting enough to know that. Like, if you're not acting like yourself, if you're being more quiet than usual or more awkward or smaller, then you're probably feeling insecure in some way, shape, or form. Okay? Step 2 is to identify what part of this insecurity is in my control. Because obviously you have an uncontrollable factor and you have controllable factors in anything. But if there's an uncontrollable factor when it comes to insecurity, you have to find a way to release this insecurity through raw acceptance. If you're insecure about something you can't change, then you have to find a way to falter confidence through the insecurity. Like, I can't change this about myself. I have to love it. It is what it is. I accept it fully and truly and honestly. Because nobody can make fun of you or judge you for something if you're confident about it and if you already acknowledge it. Like, who cares? Like, I used to struggle so bad. Well, I still struggle with acne, but I used to struggle with any time, like, if there was, I remember a specific time in college, like, there was this girl, I guess, who hated me or whatever, and I guess she was, like, seeing the guy that I was seeing before me or something like that, and she was like, why would you even want her? Like, she has acne or whatever. Like, that's usually what people, that was, like, always their go-to to make fun of me, was my acne. And I used to make myself feel so small about it because in my head I had this belief that acne made me ugly, until I kind of reframed that mindset and had enough acceptance towards the fact that I've done everything I can do to change it. The effort has been there. I take care of my, obviously, like, my hygiene, my health, and beyond that, some people just struggle with acne. So after that, and I fully accepted it, I feel like nobody tried to kind of make that pass towards me anymore, because it became irrelevant. It became something that wouldn't faze me, so it wasn't worth saying, and that was very obvious. So it, honestly, like, I've never had anyone mention it since then, because the way you blow it off and accept it for what it is, like, it's embarrassing for them to judge you for something that you're confident about or that you've already accepted about yourself. It's not going to get you down if you've already accepted it about yourself. Okay? So then obviously the second category of that is your controllable factors when it comes to insecurity. And those controllables are exactly the areas of growth. So now you need to take those controllables, things that you can fix or work on, and reframe the way that you view insecurity. So it's actually a good thing that you feel insecure in this topic, or in this regard, because it means that there is room to grow, there's room to learn, there's room to be better. That means you haven't peaked yet. You just have more stuff to learn or something to take from this experience, okay? It's a worse feeling to think, like, oh, I'm never have, like, any sort of twinge of insecurity, because I guess you just know everything and you're just perfect. Like, no, we're not perfect. There's random things that you should learn more about or try harder or whatever. There's always room for growth, and that's a beautiful and wonderful thing, that we are ever evolving, growing, and we're always in somewhat of a state of becoming. So reframe the way you think about that. It's great. Room for growth. Yay. Okay, so the third step for kind of solving insecurity is the execution phase. Obviously, you have to kind of act on the plan here. You have to act on these act on these controllables that I was just talking about. The best way to do that is to make a proper plan and have quantifiable variables that you can track your progression in whatever it may be. And maybe for some insecurities that's not necessarily possible, but I'll give you an example. So for right now, I'm really wanting to get into a job of marketing, okay? And in school, I studied English, so I obviously don't have a marketing degree, and I have no corporate experience, no job experience to kind of like get my foot in the door. So I'm taking the time to watch courses, teach myself, watch YouTube videos, and I'm going to try and get a certification in digital marketing. It looks like it's going to be kind of expensive though, so I'm not sure if I'm actually going to do that, but I'm trying to take the time to teach myself so that I can show up in places where I have former felt like I haven't belonged on paper. Okay? Another way that I'm doing that is today I spent 4 hours crafting a mock marketing portfolio and studying brands and brand voices and rebranding brands and stuff like that. I built a portfolio so that I can send it to employers. So whenever they see my resume and they don't see, marketing experience, I have a portfolio I can send them that shows my initiative to learn, and second, do work that's not asked of me, but teach myself these things because that's what I want. These are the areas I want to grow into, and here's proof that I have taken the initiative to do so. And people love to see initiative. If you are willing to put in the work when you're feeling insecure about something or when you just don't have the qualifications, it says a lot, it speaks volumes. So that's an example in my personal life where I am kind of executing this so that I don't feel underqualified in the job market that I am trying to integrate myself into. So yeah, make sure you are able to track your progress with quantifiable variables. So a lot of people, when they think of losing weight, they think immediately of tracking calories or weighing themselves. It doesn't have to be that clear cut. It doesn't have to be like literal numbers, but it can be something like, these are the jeans I want to fit into. And then here's a size down from that, and just measuring your pant size, your waist size, or I could lift heavier weights today, or I walked more steps or something, or I didn't feel out of breath going up this hill and I used to a month ago. I'm improving my fitness. I used to track my VO2 max last year when I was kind of on my weight loss journey because I knew that as my VO2 max was increasing, my cardio endurance was increasing. Therefore, I was able to do more cardio. Therefore, I was in a bigger calorie deficit. Therefore, I was losing weight. Which I guess kind of sounds crazy now that I said that out loud. But yeah, you don't need to like track calories or track exact weigh yourself every single morning. If that works for you, then do it. I'm just saying, if that doesn't work for you, find some other quantifiable variable that makes sense for you and that doesn't drive yourself crazy, but that you can look back and be like, wow, that's pretty cool. Like, I take pride in that. Even if it's progress photos, you can see a progression. Maybe you need to build yourself a syllabus of courses that you are going to take to educate yourself in a topic. And then you check them off as you go. That's something I do sometimes. Or to-do lists, or lists in general. Like, these are the goals. Here's how I want to get there. Here's some steps. Here's some things I need to do. And kind of go through the to-do list. However it may be, have your progress towards something you're working on be something that you can look at. You know what I mean? So you can see how far you've came, because it's so easy to get imposter syndrome when you're working on something and not realize the slow progression that you've made, because nothing happens overnight. I'm not going to drop 30 pounds tonight and tomorrow I can see a noticeable difference. And I'm like, yep, did that overnight. When it's slow and each day you're just stacking the days, it's such a small difference day by day. It's hard to tell until a lot of time has passed. But then when that time has passed, it's easy to be in your head and not realize where you started. So it's really nice when you're able to see where you started and how far you've come. That definitely is a boost of confidence and helps combat the imposter syndrome that you may deal with when you kind of reach the goal. Okay, and a final reminder, jealousy is kind of clocking areas that you can grow in. And if someone has something that you want or that makes you feel insecure, then it's possible for you too. There's enough room, there's enough things, there's enough achievements and success to go around for everyone, and you deserve anything that you want or anything that someone has that you deeply desire. You deserve it as well. And thanks for sticking around for this episode of Reinvent and Rediscover. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe or follow on all the other platforms. Leave a review, please. Like, I'm trying to get this podcast up. Anywho, thanks for listening, and until next time, live passionately. Bye.